On liberty, what does John Stuart Mill say in the book? Is there any reason to listen to absolute nonsense, do you think? The earth is flat. Someone can just spread hate and call it opinion. Someone else just says anything and looks for attention. Most people react in the same way. That's social waste. Just block it, ban it. And then John Stuart Mill steps in, calmly, almost annoyingly calm, and says, listen anyway. And he adds something sharper. A belief that can't withstand opposition is not truth, but dead memorization. Today, we're not doing a quote collection from On Liberty, but we're cutting into it properly. 4 standards: free speech, regulation, censorship, and crossing the line. And we want to do this through 4 lenses. 1. Freedom of choice. The idea that happiness isn't subjective and rational humans must have the right to design their lives. 2. Equal rights and the harm principle. My freedom isn't a superior right, and discomfort is the cost of an open society. 3. Truth and debate. Why even wrong opinions benefit society. 4. Individuality and new ideas. How progress actually happens. Yes, talking about Galileo. Now let's start with the first, freedom of choice. Mill doesn't start emotionally, he starts logically. The first core idea is that happiness is subjective. There is no answer sheet. If happiness were multiple choice, then the government can just circle the right answer. But reality doesn't work like that. For some, happiness is stability. For others, it's trial and error. For some, marriage. For others, not married. The moment society says this is how you should live to be happy, we're moving away from happiness to management. Now, if humans are rational beings, then they must have the right to use that rationally. And Mill's premise is simple. Humans possess reason. And if that's true, then 3 things follow. 1. The right to judge. 2. The right to make mistakes. 3. The right to bear responsibility. Freedom of choice isn't the right to self-destruct carelessly, but it's the structure that returns responsibility to the person whose life it is. For example, we have a lot of pressure on our career paths. Medical school is happiness, law school is happiness, a stable job is happiness. Now, these claims might not be false, but the problem begins when they become final answers. At that point, people stop asking, what do I really want? And start asking, what will be approved? So when we deny freedom of choice, we're not just limiting behavior, but we're admitting that we don't trust humans. And it's strange to say that humans are rational while building a system that treats them as if they aren't. But here comes the pushback. Alright, fine, live your life. But what if your freedom makes me uncomfortable? That's the second lens. Equal rights and the harm principle. This is where people usually misread Mill. The first core idea is that my freedom is not a superior right. If my freedom exists, then you have yours too. And the moment that I use my freedom to erase yours, freedom stops being a right and becomes a license to dominate. Second idea is that discomfort is perhaps a tax that we pay for openness. An open society is not necessarily a comfortable society. When diverse people coexist, then discomfort is inevitable. The goal isn't to reduce discomfort to 0. It's to create rules that allow coexistence despite discomfort. The third core idea is that discomfort isn't harm itself, and Mill draws a clear line. Coercive power is justified only to prevent harm to others, because discomfort does not equal harm. Harm means violation of rights, violence, fraud, threat, and that's where intervention begins. For example, I don't like LGBTQ people. Okay, one can have those feelings, but those feelings does not grant the right to erase their existence from public life. Because the moment my discomfort deletes your rights, my emotion becomes a weapon. And that's the cost of an open society. Even when I'm uncomfortable, you still have your rights. And the next reaction is this: fine, but I don't want to hear your wrong ideas. Just block them. And Mill doesn't hesitate here either. Mill gives 3 arguments, but the conclusions are simple. 1 is that minority opinion might be true. 2, even if it's false, debating it strengthens the truth. 3rd, most ideas contain partial truths, and only debate separates them. Example: hand washing. There was a time when washing your hands was mocked. It wasn't common sense, it was fringe, until it saved lives. Mill's core warning is this: today's certainty can be tomorrow's error. And here's a line that stings: a belief that can't survive criticism is dead belief, not living truth, dead repetition. Which leads to the last question. If debate is this important, then how does progress actually happen? Last, individuality and new ideas, how progress happens. This isn't about celebrating geniuses, it's about understanding a mechanism. Progress works like this: a new idea appears, it clashes with common sense, it faces criticism and resistance, it survives scrutiny, or it dies. If it survives, then the society updates. Freedom, for Mill, is basically the operating system that keeps this engine running. Example: Galileo. Galileo said something simple: maybe Earth isn't the center of the universe. Why was that explosive? Because it didn't just question astronomy, but it destabilized the worldview people relied on. And here's where debates go wrong. The question stops being, is this true? It becomes, is this dangerous? When ideas are judged by whether they disturb order instead of whether they're correct, they stop being debated, they start being managed. Galileo wasn't nearly erased because he lost an argument. He was nearly erased because he disrupted structure. And when we seal off disruptive ideas, we don't just silence a person, we block the update path of society. An open society isn't one that praises eccentrics, but it's one that leaves room for strange ideas to be challenged publicly. Because progress doesn't arrive from averages. It arrives from variation, collision, and survival. The moment we stop that process, we choose stagnation over stability. So here's the structure that Mill leaves us with. Happiness is subjective. Rational humans must have the right to choose. My freedom isn't superior. Discomfort is the cost of openness. Opposition keeps truth alive. Lastly, progress comes from new ideas surviving public testing. So, one question. What's the argument you most hate hearing these days? Share it with us, and we'll run it through these 4 standards and put it on trial properly.